The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network is an initiative of the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy. Our vision is giving protocol a bigger voice and increasing visibility. More than 40 countries to participate from Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, Oceania, Atlantica.
Of economic development and transition of global interest, we must recognize that protocol and diplomacy plays a significant role in global growth. The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network embraces diversity and inclusion, promotes visibility, and discusses global solutions. Let's succeed together.
Hi, my name is Verona, coming to you from the beautiful botanical gardens here at University of Berkeley in sunny California, creating opportunities for global interactions among diverse protocol and diplomatic professionals around the world. Our vision is making protocol great.
The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network gives access to a global network of professionals, diplomats, protocol practitioners, and influential connections, and a platform that accelerates diversity and inclusion.
I always wanted to be in an inclusive and diversified environment where you have the right opportunities to networking, learn and discuss solutions that will enhance the protocol and diplomatic world. The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network is bringing a positive change.
The Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network is the new big vision.
In the world of politics and diplomacy, you represent the utmost philosophy, treating all parties with respect and equality. Regions, traditions, nations, and missions, you are the key to peaceful interactions. You are the platform that holds assemblies, congregations, and talks, or meetings at high-level events where a head of delegation presents and resolves international matters, proving that protocol indeed matters. Providing guidelines on cultural signs and also the courtesy rule that applies. As you prepare with flawless excellence, agenda seating and order of precedence, reflecting that protocol standing still for all who are involved, VIP, guests, dignitaries, delegations, and audience, creating a better place, a connected universe. In the world of sports and military, you guarantee professional immunity, free from faux pas, free from mistakes. Be prepared and have what it takes. Flags, anthems at victory ceremonies, juggling around with medals and trophies, ranks, uniforms, parades, and gifts, solving unforeseen issues with polished wits. Although the envious many and the ignorant brigade may think it's but vanity and needless charade, as they are not aware of the facts, what this profession expects: night shifts, long hours on weekends, working at galas and dining events. In the world of business, trade, and science, you balance between known and unconscious bias, ensuring peace, harmony, and alliance of all team members in reliance, working for the success of the official ties, connecting people and ideas in their minds. They share at a conference or a symposium. Attention to detail is the minimum requirement of a profession. Be ready, be exceptional. In the world of digitalization, you bridge tradition and innovation, using new set of skills and adaptability to the future encounters and integrity, switching personal conventions and resolutions into online platforms with viable solutions. GDPR, Wi-Fi, and internet connection just as vital as dress codes and invitations. In the world of the 21st century, where protocol means efficiency, acting like an ATM, paying off with courtesy, you represent trust, the most valuable currency. At any given official or social occasion, your polite manners with seamless organization make leaders succeed regardless of the nation, race, color, age, or even gender and culture. Protocol respects all parties in a phenomenal structure. You sacrifice the time, distant from family. You dedicate your life to enhance diplomacy.
The Honorable Patricia Kenneth Devine is the Director of the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy in the United Kingdom. She also holds the titles of President of the Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network, Coordinator of the Afro-Protocol Initiative promoting and driving the protocol agenda in Africa, Champion of the Global Education Executive Program, and founding President of the Association of Certified Protocol Practitioners in Nigeria. She has over 16 years of experience in international trade advisory and business development and promoting partnerships and investment between the UK, Europe, Asia, and Africa, and over 12 years of working experience with the Department of Business and Trade, where she led as an international trade and investment advisor, supporting the success of British companies in Africa and the sub-Saharan regions in the area of oil and gas, sustainability, and renewable energy. Patricia is the principal consultant at Synergy Systems Consultants, an international trade advisory firm, and an advisory board member to various global brands and organizations, including the Global Chamber. Her degrees, training, and certifications have been conferred by the Imperial College Business School, Robert Gordon University, London Business School, the University of Cambridge, Homerton College, Edinburgh Business School, the University of Lagos, and the University of Benin, amongst others. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Patricia Kenneth Devine.
Distinguished guests, esteemed leaders, members of the diplomatic community, our very valued participants and protocol professionals from across the world. Good afternoon. It is my honor to welcome you to the Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network 2026 Summit, convened under the theme Global Protocol Frontier, Unite Leaders, Shape Policies, and Launch the Index Era. Today we gather as a pivotal moment of our profession. Protocol, long regarded as a ceremonial function, now stands recognized as a strategic pillar of global governance, international cooperation, and sustainable diplomacy. So the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy, ICPD, is privileged to host this distinguished assembly of ambassadors and government officials, protocol experts, global partners, business leaders committed to advancing the profession. I'd like to acknowledge very quickly our keynote speaker as well as our distinguished speakers. We especially welcome and honored by the presence of our keynote speaker, Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Sahid Amin Khan, an eminent global statesman whose leadership in peace building, interfaith dialogue, and diplomatic engagement continues to show a great example across practitioners worldwide. His participation underscores the significance of the summit and the global relevance of our shared mission. We also extend our appreciation to the distinguished speakers who will continue their expertise throughout today's program, their insights in terms of diplomacy, governance, technology, and cultural intelligence will really enrich our collective understanding and guide the future in terms of direction of protocol practice. And then we'll also want to talk about the launching of this index era, which is an eye-opening historic milestone with the launch of the ever first Protocol Practice Index report as we begin to unveil and analyze the workability of putting this report out there. This groundbreaking global benchmark provides a comprehensive assessment for protocol systems, highlighting best practices, emerging challenges, and opportunities of improvement. So it really introduces a new era of accountability. It introduces a new era of excellence and comparative analysis in terms of strengthening the profession's global architecture. And then we thought it's also very important for us to mention the GPD and protocol roadmap and the 2030 agenda. This is in parallel as we unveil the GPDN protocol roadmap as well as the agenda. So these are all modeled in the spirit of the United Nations 2030 agenda. This framework really adapts the principles of the Sustainable Development Goals in terms of the unique context of diplomatic protocol. So it recognizes protocol as a driver of effective governance, transparency, institutional strengthening, and cross-cultural understanding. So just to mention that the roadmap is anchored on 7 interconnected pillars, from innovation and digital transformation to global partnerships and corporations to capacity building and professional development, then inclusivity and gender equality, ethical standards and good governance, cultural intelligence and self-power, and then the last one, which is actually sustainability and long-term impact. So together, the index and the roadmap form a coherent ecosystem that elevates protocol from procedures to strategic influence, and aligning all our work with global development priorities such as quality education, gender equality, reducing inequalities and peace, justice and strong institutions are really very important. So today's agenda will be looking at, examining the findings of the Protocol Practice Index, exploring the implementation pathways of the GPDN Protocol Roadmap and 2030 Agenda, as well as discussing the future of protocol as a strategic global function. So strengthening cross-national collaboration and policy influence is really important, as well as collectively envision a more inclusive, innovative, and interconnected protocol community. So this is brilliant, and we want to again acknowledge all the excellencies present here We want to say thank you to our distinguished delegates, as well as the leaders and gentlemen that are present here today. This summit is more than a convening. It is a call of action, a call to reimagine the role of protocol in shaping global diplomacy, a call to build systems that are ethical, resilient, and future ready, and a call to unite leaders. Shaping policies, of course, is so important, and launch this new era of excellence. So I want you to have a blessed time today, have a really engaging time. On behalf of the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy, we say thank you for your presence, your commitment, and your leadership and your support. This is really brilliant. And again, on this note, I say welcome to the Global Protocol and Diplomatic Network Summit 2026.
Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Shahid Amin Khan is the fourth world chairman of the International Human Rights Commission. He is also the first Muslim and Asian elected from his members in the history of the IHRC. His initial 10-year term began in February 1996 and was then extended by the General Assembly for a second term in 2006. He is also the chairman of the World Peace Mission Organization, elected by the Board of Directors in its first ever meeting, which was held in Dubai in December of 2001. Dr. Khan was born in Lahore, Pakistan on June 2, 1996. He studied at the Central Model School in Lahore until 1980 and graduated from the Government College in Lahore, Pakistan in 1984. He completed postgraduate studies in journalism at the Punjab University, Lahore, Pakistan in 1988, his law studies from Lahore Law College in 1993, and then went on to earn a doctorate in international law in 1996 and 2 doctorates of philosophy in 2011. Dr. Khan joined the International Human Rights Commission in 1988 as the chairman of Jaza Welfare Trust International, Pakistan. Today, in addition to his roles as the fourth world chairman of the IHRC and chairman and president of the board of directors of the World Peace Mission Organization, Dr. Khan also serves as the chairman of the International Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights Studies based in Pakistan. Dr. Khan has received honors from His Holiness Pope John Paul II in the form of the Star of Vatican, the World Hijra Council at Jeddah in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, receiving the Hijra Medal, His Excellency General Emil Luhud, President of the Republic of Lebanon with the Order of the Presidency of the Republic of Lebanon, and His Excellency Ekmeladin Ihsanoglu, Secretary General of Islamic Corporation with the Appreciation Shield. Dr. Khan has received honors from the Governor State of Usan, Nigeria, the Human Rights Ministry of Iraq, the Director General of Internal Security of Lebanon, the Supreme National Commission for Accountability and Justice of Iraq, the Secretary Election Commission of Pakistan, the Syrian Bar Association, the Lebanon Bar Association, and the Karachi Bar Association in Pakistan. He also oversees the Pakistan Solidarity Organization UK with awards and recognition of his service in peace and human rights. Dr. Khan was honored by Kashmir Mission USA with the Leadership and Peace Building Award for his services in promoting peace and protecting human rights. His service highlights include the role of Ambassador and Special Diplomatic Advisor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau with full diplomatic status. Dr. Khan currently serves as a board member of several humanitarian organizations and patronizes non-governmental organizations in Pakistan, Nigeria, Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, India, Nepal, and the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Shahid Amin Khan.
Thank you once again, and I welcome you all to this gathering. At this point, I would like to now hand over to M. Battels and Agnes Bihari, who are moderators, and they'll be taking things from here. M, you have the stage. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me, and welcome Agnes, my co-moderator. I'm going to be reading Agnes's bio, and then she will in turn read mine. Agnes Bihari is the lead advisor and head of projects on sustainable development at ICPD. She's organized and presented at several on-site and online multilingual events on international scientific collaboration in emerging markets for over 2 decades, enhancing intercultural awareness and soft diplomacy skills as the core foundations of a collaborative and thriving multipolar world. Her vision is to uphold human dignity and promote harmonious coexistence in our beautiful world. Agnes, you have the stage.
Thank you very much, Anne, for this wonderful presentation and introduction. It is an honor to contribute to this insightful event. And likewise, I'm pleased to present Ms. Anne Bartels, our moderator, who is an executive coach, personal brand and communications expert, the founder and CEO of GPA Awards International Ltd, a professional development organization that supports executives through creativity, innovation, and excellence. With over 30 years post-qualifications experience spanning international marketing, PR, consulting, and communication, she is the ICPD Africa lead. Anne, over to you.
Hello, and thank you. We're going to be having our first speaker of the day. Our first speaker will be discussing on what we call the protocol crisis, the protocol resilience, crisis protocol resilience, and indexing response capabilities. And that will be presented by Florence Ticciona. Florence Ticciona is an accomplished protocol and consular affairs professional with over 15 years of experience supporting high-level diplomacy across diverse international settings. She served as First Secretary, Protocol at the Malawi High Commission in Nairobi, and her protocol portfolio covers Kenya, Uganda, Israel, Eritrea, Somalia, and Central African Republic, demanding discretion, cultural intelligence, and calm decision-making under pressure. Her approach is grounded in lived experience and aligns with the Protocol Practice Index, advocating standards that reflect real-world diplomatic practice and resilience leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, discussing crisis protocol and resilience index response capabilities, Ms. Florence Ticciona. Please come up stage. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, before I start, I would like to say thank you to the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy for this honor, and especially for convening this important conversation on the future of global protocol and diplomacy. You see, when many people hear the word diplomacy or protocol, they immediately think of rules, seating arrangements, titles, procedures, and even formalities. But from my lived experience, protocol succeeds or fails on something far more. Allow me to begin with a story from my home country. You know, in the dry season, animals will always gather peacefully at the watering hole. It can be a riverbank. You will find zebras drinking, antelopes drinking, and even elephants standing calmly. Everything appears stable, but experienced animals always remain alert. Because you know the real danger is not when the lions roars, it is when the birds suddenly go quiet. That silence means something has shifted. And now survival depends on awareness, preparation, and also response. Protocol works in the same way. Diplomatic crises rarely begin with dramatic announcements. No, they begin with small shifts. It can be a delayed arrival, a misunderstood title, maybe a seating adjustment, or a cultural signal missed. And suddenly, the success of an engagement depends not on the written procedure, but on the system's resilience. Now, today I will share how crisis protocol, resilience, and response capability connect directly to what we now call the index era of protocol practice. When we talk about the index era, we are really talking about a fundamental shift in how we define protocol professionalism. Traditionally, protocol was assessed by structure. We normally focused on whether the ceremony was correct, whether the order was followed, whether procedures were completed exactly as planned. And if all of that checked out, we considered protocol as successful. But today's diplomatic environment has changed tremendously. Global engagements are faster, more fluid, and far less predictable. Structure alone is no longer enough. What matters now are outcomes. Right now, we need to start asking ourselves different questions. We need to ask ourselves, did protocol hold when conditions changed? Did it protect relationships in moments of uncertainty? Did it enable cooperation under pressure? This is what now defines the index era. Protocol moves from being purely procedural to something measurable, adaptive, and strategic. And it's within this shift that resilience becomes one of its most critical indicators. And now, before I share what this looks like in practice, let me briefly situate myself in this work. My name is Florence Tichaona Mwangi, and I come from the warm heart of Africa. I'll leave you to guess which part that is. But it is a place where the sun is generous, where the lakes feels more like an ocean, where people greet you more before they even ask you what you do, and where warmth is not only about climate, it is cultural. If you're still guessing, good enough. That curiosity will serve you well in this index era. Now, for context, I served in Kenya as First Secretary Protocol, working closely with the High Commissioner on high-level diplomatic engagement. My protocol responsibility covered Uganda, Israel, Eritrea, Somalia, and the Central African Republic. In supporting my diplomatic engagements across diverse national and institutional systems, I have seen wide political and I would say cultural and also procedural variation. But one reality cuts across all of them. Every system eventually encounters unexpected change. When that happens, written procedure alone does not carry the moment. What matters is real-time response capability, the ability to adapt instantly while safeguarding dignity, relationships, and also outcomes. And this is exactly where the next indicator becomes critical. Let's now dive into something different. Let's consider something that often appears straightforward in protocol, credential presentations. On paper, they are very clear. There is correct sequence, correct language, and correct posture. When those elements are in place, the engagement is technically sound. But in practice, however, credential presentations carry far greater weight. They are moments of national dignity and bilateral respect, and their impact extends well beyond procedural accuracy. I learned this early in my career during a credential presentation in Uganda when I accompanied my High Commissioner to present credentials to President Yoweri Museveni. That time, from a technical standpoint, everything was correct. The sequence was followed precisely, the language used was accurate, and posture and movement aligned with established protocol. And the ceremony proceeded without interruption. However, there was one subtle cultural expectation that had not been fully accounted for: the importance of allowing the host authority to fully set the pace and tone of the interaction before any movement or exchange. Now, while the procedure itself was accurate, the moment required a slightly longer pause and acknowledgement consistent with how respect is signaled in many official settings. No rule was broken and nothing failed, but the atmosphere shifted slightly, a change perceptible primarily to protocol professionals, yet one that quietly influences perception and tone. That experience clarified something essential. Protocol success is not defined only by correctness. Correctness is the baseline. What ultimately defines or determines effectiveness is its contextual appropriateness, the ability to align procedure with culture and expectation and the meaning in real time. This distinction between technical accuracy and contextual performance is exactly the kind of gap that the index era is seeking to identify and also measure. Let us now talk about a critical dimension of response capability: relationships. Across multiple countries, I observed that when plans changed unexpectedly, hierarchy rarely determined the outcome. What consistently made a difference was relationships. When trust existed, adjustments were accepted quickly. Where communication channels were established early, solutions emerged faster. Where mutual respect was visible, even sensitive changes were managed smoothly. And I saw this firsthand during my posting in Kenya. You see, earlier on, I made a deliberate effort to invest in relationships before I ever needed them. I deliberately visited the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and this was not for formal engagement. It was just simply to understand the officers and also the people I would be working with. I would just walk in the office, introduce myself, exchange greetings, and I would just make small connections. At that time, there was no immediate payoff. But as my work progressed, these connections became operationally significant. When challenges arose, I often knew someone or someone who knows someone who could help resolve an issue quickly. My work flowed faster, not because of authority, but because relationships and trust were already in place. That experience made a key point clear. Relationships are not soft elements of protocol. You need to get that one. Relationships are not soft elements of protocol. They are operational assets. They directly shape how effectively a team responds when conditions change. And in the index era, if we are serious about measuring real response capability, these operational assets like trust, communication readiness, and relational networks must be understood and also assessed. Which brings us to the next critical dimension: how resilience intersects with these relationships to ensure outcomes under pressure. As I build on what we just discussed about relationships, cross-cultural differences, which also shape how effectively we respond when things change. In some contexts, direct communication signals efficiency. In others, indirect communication signals respect. In some cultures, quick decisions demonstrate leadership. And in others, consultation conveys legitimacy. Now, if you misread these signals, it can create friction during sensitive moments. It can slow response, or also it can undermine trust. That is why cultural intelligence is more than an interpersonal skill. It is a resilience mechanism. It allows protocol systems to adapt, absorb stress, and also maintain effectiveness under pressure. In the index era, globally relevant protocol cannot be culturally neutral. Never. It must always be informed, sensitive, and adaptable to the realities of the people and systems involved, just as the relationships we build in advance enable faster and smoother responses. Now allow me to bring this framework to life with a real example. Let's look at the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. I'm going to illustrate this in the 5-point response model, which I came up with. You see, what is often forgotten is that this agreement, the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, did not begin in a conference room. It began quietly, through back channels, at a time when the United States and Iran had no formal diplomatic relations. And there was almost no trust. The first task was relationship mapping, identifying who actually influenced decisions in Tehran and Washington beyond formal titles. Then came cultural briefing. Negotiators had to understand political pride, public perception, and how language or sequencing could signal respect or humiliation. Response channels mattered most. Before anything went public, direct human contact was established through quiet meetings in Oman, which reduced misinterpretation, and also it allowed intentions to be tested safely. Authority awareness was very critical. Nothing would hold without approval from the highest levels. Barack Obama in Washington and Hassan Rouhani backed by Iran's supreme leadership. You know how it was that time. And finally, quiet contingency planning. Sanctions relief was phased, inspectors were built in, and fallback options were prepared, and nothing was left to assumption. Whether one supported the deal or not, the lesson was clear. This was not theoretical readiness. It was deliberate, structured response capability in action. Exactly what the 5-point response model is designed to capture in the index era. Let's now bring this back to the index era. The Protocol Practice Index marks an important evolution in our profession. It shows that protocol excellence is no longer about form. It is defined by the consistency under pressure, cross-cultural effectiveness, and institutional responsiveness, and also the sustainability of relationships, which is very important. Now, by indexing these elements, we gain greater accountability, clearer professional standards, and stronger diplomatic outcomes. And this is not measurement for its own sake. It is measurement that actively strengthens international cooperation. Let me now close with a simple observation from practice. During a summit in Kenya with multiple heads of state, the Malawian president I was facilitating experienced a flight delay. In this, it was pressure moment. It disrupted the program because according to protocol, 2 presidents cannot be in the VIP lounge at the same time. The flags, the decor, and the apron must all reflect the arriving head of state. This meant we had to quickly remove the Malawian colors, redeploy the lounge and hotel arrangements to reflect the incoming president, ensuring flags and representation were correct. Timelines were tight. Hotels had to be notified and every detail adjusted. And no manual could fully prepare you for that. What ensured success in this instant was prior trust, cultural awareness, and the confidence to adapt without creating embarrassment for anyone. Once handled, the visit proceeded smoothly, and most observers never realized anything had changed. That, to me, is the essence of resilient protocol. Not preventing every change, you cannot, but you just have to ensure that when change comes, dignity and cooperation remain intact. Now the index era challenges us to move beyond asking, was protocol followed? Now we need to start asking ourselves, did protocol sustain diplomacy when conditions shifted? When we can measure that, we are not only strengthening protocol practice, we are strengthening the foundations of international engagement itself. Now, I don't know if you're still guessing the country that I come from. I come from Malawi. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that in-depth presentation there. There was so much to take from it, and it's so detailed that, you know, there's so many areas I want to ask, but there's one thing that you mentioned that I thought I'll quickly ask because, you know, the presentation from beginning to end was very detailed. My question briefly is, in our current geopolitical, unstable and turbulent world, right? How do we adopt protocol procedure to suit, you know, imbalances or shifts that occur in practice?
We need to, like I mentioned in my address, we need to take relationships very serious. The moment you establish relationships in real time, when you can have a human contact, whenever there's a shift or whenever there are changes, you are able to quickly adjust and make calls where needed, and also make changes so that the shift is not noticeable. So especially nowadays when even communication is very fluid, with the internet around and all that, we just need to be on our toes and establish relationships in good time.
Okay. So we establish relationships all over, not just in just international relations and diplomacy alone, but relationships across board. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and we don't have to depend on the procedures in the book.
Okay.
We have to go outside the book.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that in-depth presentation there. And I really, really appreciate it was so insightful. I kept on making lots of notes. So thank you so much for that. And hope to see you in our other programs as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
At this point, I'll hand you over to Agnes to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Anne. Jamaica's first certified international trade professional, Mr. Robert Scott, was the senior national trade advisor for the Ecoris Lumin consulting team that executed the World Bank group-funded Jamaica Trade Information Portal in 2018. He is the Dean of the Consular Corps of Jamaica and the Honorary Consul to the Republic of Latvia in Jamaica. He firmly believes that gravitas is critical for successful leaders in the world today, and he's providing his invaluable insights as an additional perspective. His presentation explores cultural intelligence and global indexing. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Robert Scott.
It's indeed a pleasure to be here presenting on this topic that is of very, very importance, especially at this time in the geopolitical maelstrom that is taking place. And I would like to start by defining what is soft power. And I'm sure we all recognize that it is the ability to influence through attraction and persuasion to make things happen in a way it needs to happen. This term was coined by Joseph Nye, who is an ambassador diplomat in the US. And he really spoke to the fact that soft power shares the preferences, making others want to align with us. And it's done a lot through culture, arts, music, sports, and I will share some examples of what takes place not only in Jamaica but in other territories. The political values, the governance, and as you recognize that in some areas, when you have an impasse, that certain individuals or certain countries are asked to mediate. And this is because of their high political value and the relationships that they would have established in these territories. And of course, the foreign policy credibility, which is the legitimacy, the consistency, and most importantly, the moral authority that is exhibited by these either individuals or countries. Now, one may ask, why does this matter? The fact is, soft power builds trust, which is a critical ingredient in problem solving. It strengthens trade and diplomatic partnerships. And the fact is that the world now becoming a village, people are interacting all over the world. So we need to have those relationships and that trust and that credibility that will make people want to do business with you. It enables countries to attract tourism and investment with certain for small island developing states. This is critical. And then, of course, it enhances your global responsibility. And this is tremendously important. So extremely happy to speak to this matter, to speak and to learn about soft power and how it can in fact be implemented. Now, does soft power still matter? Absolutely. And as I share that, influence today is actually driven by the trust, the credibility, and the perception. Because the economic power that you may have or the military power alone, it can no longer guarantee global influence. And you see that is playing out right now in many theaters of the world. And so therefore, reputation, very importantly, shapes the trade, the tourism, the partnerships, and ultimately diplomacy that exists between customers. And of course, the chairman of Brand Finance made a point that soft power has never been more important, restoring equilibrium to the international system. Cultural intelligence, which is considered the new diplomatic currency, but it's not really very new. And this was coined by Christopher Early and Sunan in around 2001, which came out in their book, Cultural Intelligence, Individual Interactions Across Cultures in 2003. And it ultimately is the ability to work effectively across cultures. And it goes way beyond etiquette, but it involves mindset, the empathy, and very, very importantly, adaptability. And we got examples from that from the very wonderful presentation we had before. Now, the high CQ strengthens negotiations, the alliances, and ultimately the crisis response. Now, even taking it away from diplomacy, I want to give an example that I didn't understand the term at the time, but when I had a presentation to do in Vietnam, I did a signature program there. And my research told me that I had to do some training of myself before. And there are a number of things at the time that the Vietnamese were offended with. You cannot point to a Vietnamese. You cannot speak with them with their hands in their pockets. And from my presentation, the reality was that we are accustomed to presenting and getting feedback that allow us to interact with the customers. I learned that you are the instructor, so they are not going to challenge you, they are going to listen to you. And I never understood the extent to which this was in fact true. So when I had in my program that, okay, I will be asking a question here and asking a question there to get some feedback, there was no feedback. They expected me to speak to everything. So ultimately, what I had to do, and by the end of the first day of the training, I had to prepare more slides because then I realized that I would be the only one speaking in the room. And this is an aspect of cultural intelligence that understands, that allows us to understand how the cultural idiosyncrasies of the various markets and countries that we are interacting with. And ultimately, that understanding helps you to work effectively across cultures and allow you to get done what absolutely needs to get done. Now, this is where it really starts to get interesting. This is from soft power to soft power 2.0. The traditional soft power relied on culture, diplomacy, education, working with trust, and more qualitative than quantitative data. Now, soft power 2.0 has data, perception metrics, and various global rankings. So now you can actually put a number to the value of the reputation that you have and other useful indices. And so therefore it removes the guesswork, it allows for better planning. They're able to approach this in a very structured way. And so what it simply means that influence is now measurable, comparable, and consistently evaluated. So you can compare where you were last year or to this year, compare between various countries. And for example, in a soft power ranking, I saw where Jamaica, my country, fell from 86 to 87. That is something that our policymakers certainly would have to look at and see, well, all right, what do we need to do differently? And what, in fact, influence that moving downward? And it is something that we really must analyze. Now, global indexing ultimately is really ranking countries on various criteria, could be governance, business, education, innovation, and there are several indexes around. We're speaking to one. There's also the soft power index, the competitiveness index, and governance indices. And these rankings do have an economic benefit because it shapes investors' confidence and their diplomatic credibility. I can tell you in my country, whenever the US puts out a travel advisory that is not complementary to the country, we do have cancellations. Now, what it does, it sends us into a flurry in terms of having meetings and increasing our advertising, and it makes it more difficult in the absence of having any indexing to show exactly where you are and whether those perceptions are in fact real. So global indexing brings a level of objectivity, which is certainly very helpful for commerce, for business, and for government relations. And the Global Soft Power Index, just quickly as an example here, there are 8 soft power pillars and 35 national brand attributes. And all of these allow you to do some ranking in terms of creating familiarity of how well a nation is known, their reputation, how positively a nation is regarded. And this certainly is a guide which we didn't have many years ago. Now, indexes matter for small states. And in my analogy here of a David and Goliath situation, that for small states or small island developing states, it levels the playing field. It provides information based on hard data for businesses, investors, and policymakers. And I must say the advantage that it is independently created and verified is very significant. One of the problems with small island development states is that we have very little data on which we do our business. So having this data verified by a third party and independent body is critically important for us. And this perception is in fact real. So the more that we can adjust the perception to what the reality is better for our countries, it is better for attracting the investment. And of course, there's a feedback loop, which is something that's very important. Our cultural intelligence, I think we agree that it improves our engagement and our global perception. Now, that positive global perception, it improves the rankings and the global standing in those matrices. And with that improved ranking and global standing, it reinforces our national soft power and our influence. Unfortunately, the converse also applies, that with falling cultural intelligence, it reduces our ranking, and therefore it creates a downward spiral. So, in other words, this has to be managed extremely well. Now, protocol is in fact a strategic tool because the modern protocol signals respect, competence, cultural fluency, and protocol professionals are reputational managers and trust builders. And if this has not been emphasized, I think it's something that really must be emphasized in each particular country. Because as protocol professionals, you are almost the front line. You may work a bit behind the scenes, but you are the front line. And your role has to be able to create this reputation, this positive reputation for that country. And every interaction in business, we call it the moment of truth. Every interaction reinforces or erodes your natural brand equity. And of course, I must speak a bit to the Caribbean and Africa, that Caribbean diplomacy leverages warmth. You have to have relationships doing business in places like Jamaica. I know it's extremely true for Cuba and the business interactions I've had with that country, and also within Latin America. So in many of the quote unquote third world, small island developing states, and these other areas, the relationship building is critical. And we certainly had a good discussion on that in the earlier presentation. Now, Caribbean speaks to that relationship. African diplomacy balances the tradition, the hierarchy, and that modern global engagement in such an effective way. And ICPD enables smaller states to really build an outsized influence internationally. And I'll mention the point on Jamaica pretty soon. Now, I want to get into some specifics, some examples, and I hope that this would be of interest. When I look at soft power in action, I look at sports, and I give the example of Rwanda. There's a long-term relationship that started in 2018 and really only came to a close in 2025. And this multi-year partnership seems simple, but it was tremendously effective. They created a relationship with Arsenal Football Club, and they simply had on the sleeve visit Rwanda. And of course, there were global digital broadcasts, there was a lot of social media, branding, and so forth. But just by virtue of putting Visit Rwanda, it sent that message, it advertised in a powerful way. And you have to recognize that the English Premier League is viewed not only in the UK, but in over 200 countries. Over 200 countries are seeing this and looking at the players. And it reaches the youth market, who, they would follow football, but also the business elites who also follow sports and football, and the global media. So this worked tremendously. I don't have numbers as to the extent of the success, but it certainly did work. And it's all not to be considered as sports sponsorship, but in a very powerful way, it's strategic nation branding. And this is not the only example in Africa. I want to speak to others that both South Africa and Qatar in hosted the World Cup, South Africa in 2010 and Qatar in 2022. And there were a number of dimensions which I quickly run through. The one that we spoke about is the sponsorship of a global club, which allowed for continuous long-term visibility, and it helped to reposition Rwanda as being safe and investable. This had also a major impact on tourism, I understand, and it allowed moderate scrutiny. So the reputational risk was actually quite low, but it created strategic visibility in the soft power. In the area of the World Cup for both these territories, it was a 1 month focus area. Now, in that 1 month, South Africa wanted to rebrand itself as a capable continental leader. If you want to do business with Africa, you come to South Africa first. Well, that's a powerful message. And Qatar, similarly, they want to position themselves as a global hub and modern Gulf power. So this is well beyond advertising. This actually looked at these major sporting events, tied in with governmental support, tied in with private sector support, allowed for a wonderful visibility. And this is certainly something worth copying. Now, as I come closer to home, the European Union in Jamaica, they have been extremely active, and not just in giving funding and supporting programs. They've created in the last 3 years a 5K race, which was geared towards assisting crime, reduction of crime, but also providing funds for various charities. And you see here myself with the ambassador and the other delegates, and it pulled first year 2,000, second year 4,000, third year 6,000 people coming, getting the messaging from the European Union, interacting with persons from the European Union, and this worked particularly well. So of course, the soft power by the European Union is very well done in Jamaica, but this event, I thought, really got to the common man in the street to get the messaging, participate, and interact. So for sports, that worked. Now, I have to speak to my event that I created in 2011, which as the Honorary Consul General for Latvia, I wanted to be able to promote the country. And I came up with the Latvian Independence Regatta, which started in 2011. And the only year we've skipped was for 2000 because we couldn't do anything because of the pandemic. And this year we'll be having the 15th installment of it, which we are the only country that celebrates a national day with a yacht race. And we've also included rowing and surfing. And, you know, it's not hard because I'm the president of the Yachting Association and the rowing in Jamaica and also the vice commodore of the Royal Jamaica Yacht Club. So I was able to pool all these resources, build on these relationships. And it is actually the most supported yacht activity for the whole year in Kingston. So this really works well, and it's an opportunity to message. A lot of people didn't understand how the flag of Latvia was created, one of the oldest flags in history. We know that Crocodile Dundee was originally Latvian, and the person who actually invented jeans was a Latvian. So it's an opportunity to share interesting trivia, but to let people learn about the countries. And as I mentioned, this is the most successful of all of the sailing events that takes place in Kingston, Jamaica. And then just a few examples. So this is the invite, and I send out a photo of along the course in Kingston Harbor. And this is a picture taken by one of Jamaica's most revered photographers, who died a few years ago, but this is one of my favorite photos that he did for my event. And we have the prize giving, where I give out handsome trophies. There's a red blazer that is given to the winning skipper, and trophies, and a lot of activity that takes place. As I said, this is actually one of our most famous activities for sailing. And moving away from sports, in film and culture, we've also made a difference. When we look at the European Union Film Festival that takes place in Kingston, Jamaica, where all of the European Union countries, or at least 12, will have movies. Latvia, of course, does have their movie. And we're able to message, for example, in 2023, when this photo was taken, I was involved with human trafficking, or reduction of human trafficking, let me put that more accurately. And we showed Olaf, which was a Latvian film, about human trafficking and modern day slavery. And so, in the entertainment of the film, there was also an opportunity to message about what we need to do to reduce human trafficking. And so that should have been extremely successful. And the Indian High Commission, which is so well known for health initiatives throughout the country, they operate in most of the administrative districts with various activities. And annually they have an event where they promote yoga. So here we had a couple of hundred people at our national gardens, and we had an hour and a half of yoga, which certainly helped to endear the Indian community, which is approximately 1% of the population, to the general population, and of course, a bit of exchange of their culture. So generally, when the Indian High Commission, whether the current one or previous ones, go into a space, they're so well regarded because of this consistent manifestation of soft power. And of course, there is some evidence I'd like to put here that there is an economic value to soft power. Jamaica is one of the top 5 most recognizable national brands globally, and this is done by Bloom Consulting, that does only city and nation branding. And it is valued at $33 to $35 billion. And that's a fact. But the qualitative benefit, I believe, was signaled that in October, when we had Hurricane Melissa, many international bodies had boots on the ground. They were sending, Belgium, for example, alone sent 400 generators. And the international appeal was phenomenal. And this happened at the same time when the Philippines also had a national disaster. But at this side of the world, all you heard about was Jamaica and tremendous support. And this, I think, is perhaps the very best example of the value of soft power, that when you're in need, your friends come and give you assistance. And I humbly submit that there are a number of things that leaders must do. They have to institutionalize cultural intelligence, make it continuous with the benefit of these indices, make sure that it's measurable. And of course, have these benchmarks into the hiring or promoting of individuals who certainly show these qualities. They must manage global indices strategically. Identify 5 or 7 priority indices and allocate the resources towards them and give it the necessary support. Thirdly, elevate protocol to reputational strategy. Protocol cannot exist in a vacuum, and we heard that said earlier, but it must be an effective part of the strategy of the country to build. And the smaller you are, the more important it is. And you need to select your platforms intentionally. It's not ad hoc or what may be more convenient, but actually do the work. And we see how Rwanda benefited by working with football. And then, of course, use the sort for feedback loop that when things go wrong, it will get worse. But when you're doing a good job, it will also help you, and one will reinforce the other. And as my time is at an end, my closing thoughts that in the modern world, influence belongs to those who understand people and perception. And soft power too, we're not only operating in that best way, but also using the data to support it. It was the empathy, consistency, and cultural intelligence. And I am very honored to have been able to share this with you today. And I'm happy
Thank you very
to
much.
answer any questions if there are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts Christie Scott, for this insightful presentation. You indeed illustrated that cultural intelligence is the new diplomatic currency, and with possible ramifications into variations such as multicultural and intercultural awareness as a strategic nation branding opportunity. In a data and value-driven world where what cannot be measured does not seem to exist, The topic you presented on the global indexing is essential and objective tool to driving international collaboration, especially in the current emerging multipolar world. So I was monitoring the questions. There is no question at this point. However, I would like to encourage everyone to reach out directly to Mr. Robert C. Scott on LinkedIn, and you will be able to continue the discussion. So thank you very much again. And now I would like to bring over to my moderator colleagues. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you so much. From Florence and Robert, that has been brilliant in terms of your delivery and the presentations. And it just really opens our eyes to the impact of the index error, how important the index error is, and why we should all begin to think as protocol professionals across the world, the relevance of this very topic. So I want to say thank you, Florence and Robert, for that fantastic contributions you've given to us. And I think this is really good. I don't know your thoughts, but I just think, it's a new area, and considering the fact that, protocol practice index, how we measure it is important at this time. We've been doing a whole lot of things, a lot of activities going on, a lot of practices going on, but, measuring it is so key. And I think that's one of the things protocol officers should take from this discussion when it comes to what we're listening to. So there are going to be many more analysis in terms of how we appraise the index error. And we want to drive that in to be sure that we understand the implication of that and how that really settles in terms of the profession when it comes to protocol. And then I'll also use this opportunity to just quickly mention apologies from our keynote speaker, who is currently on, boarding, and it's so difficult to, do both together. So please, apologies from him. We'll find a way to send his remarks across to participants, or probably before the session ends today, we'll find a way to do that. So please bear with us while we walk around the keynote speech. Thank you so much. You want?
Thank you. Yes. I think indexing is actually key, and one of the things that it would do.
I think we'll bring in the next speaker, if I'm not mistaken.
The next speaker. Okay, I thought you were asking me my opinion of the.
Okay, fantastic.
We'll go straight on.
No, I was asking, but I think I lost you.
That's fine, no problem at all. We'll go straight on to our next speaker, who will be sharing on the Protocol Practice Index from global to local benchmark. Rolando Correa dos Santos is the head of protocol and institutional relations as Loures City Council. He holds a degree in marketing management from the Portuguese Institute of Marketing Administration with postgraduate studies in communication sciences from Universidade Nova de Lisboa, and in image, protocol, and event planning from Universidade Europaea. Throughout his long career, he has had the opportunity to host and be involved in the state visits and receptions for the highest dignitaries and personalities, as well as national and international delegations. He is a guest lecturer and postgraduate studies in image, protocol, and event organization at Universidade Europaea. In addition to the International Institute of Protocol, he's also a certified trainer. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome upstage Rolando Correa dos Santos. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone, all over the world, and a special greetings for the Portuguese colleagues that are watching us. Abraço para todos vocês, e especially to my team is in the room next to me. And I would like to thank in first place to ICPD for the kind invitation to this moment of sharing on a topic that unites us all, the protocol. Next to the being following. Oh no, not yet. I can share if you want. Being the next presenter is difficult because Mr. Robert Scott said, and Florence, they said almost everything about this. I just want to talk a little about the importance of local protocol and to share how to local protocol can contribute to enhance the global protocol. So a few years ago, when people asked me what did I professionally in my hands, I would leave them kind of astonished. You work in what? Protocol, what's that? Is it about learning good manners or knowing how to put up flags? And I usually had to explain the difference between protocol, good manners, so what they could understand that what I specialized in could be applied not only by official institutions, but also by businesses. So, and they would reply, oh, but do you think any companies cares about flags? Whoever pays for the party is in charge. Well, actually, this is what me and my team do. You can, the next one, please. Just one moment, I can share. Yes, this is what we do every day. This is what a protocol professional do every day for the everything we have to do. We have fun in what we do. So I would like to share something written by a former president of the Portuguese Parliament that reveals in one sentence, the importance of the protocol in society. And I would like to highlight the words, I don't know, I don't think I am controlling the presentation. Yes, this one. I would like to highlight the word civilization because protocol adds to everything civilization. Most people confuse protocol with etiquette and good manners. It is a natural confusion. Maybe the next one. Even though good manners have more to do with courtesy than with protocol. But we must not forget that courtesy considered the code of behavior of the courtier, the man of the court, was in its origin the state protocol. On the other hand, there has always been a deep connection between good manners and etiquette. Both are ruled by codes of behavior passed down from generation to generation, which facilitate relationships between people varying within each community or society. Well, this is a kind of history because most of the people that I work with every day, they don't know how all of this appeared. And they think, just like the medical doctors, everybody knows about medicine as everybody knows about protocol. And I think it's important to know how everything happens. There is no protocol with good manners, but there can be good manners without protocol. Those who work in protocol know that good manners are essential for managing situations. And this is one good point, managing situations. That's what we do every day also. Well, the truth is that there are people all over the world who are aware that protocol conveys the desired signals and messages to those attending an event organized by them, either in person or through digital media, to the new media. That's why companies are increasingly seeking out specialists in this field, considering that when organizing large corporate events, it is necessary to have knowledge that allows for the systematic arrangement of participants and symbols. The small details of protocol, as everybody knows, make all the difference. And as we say, the devil is in the details. And observing these tiny details, listening to everything they mean, is essential for good organization, as are those small signals we sometimes give imperceptibly with our instructions. As a Spanish colleague said in an interview, we all listening with our eyes and speak with our hands. But times has changed, as have technological resources, and the level and type of protocol and business events has become much more demanding. Specialization has become a greater necessity, and today there is an increasing need to professionalize this activity and regulate access through the completion of high studies in protocol. Next one, please. We're here to talk about lots of protocols, but in my opinion, protocol is just one, with several specifications that make part of a big system. The local protocol is one of it.
My apologies, sir. I did not see your presentation. I'm going to add it to the stage now. There you go.
This is mine? No?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is yours. You're able to control this one.
Okay, thank you. So, I believe that protocol is just one, just like medicine is just one. Then we are specialists in corporate, in local, in sports, in religious, in academic, but protocol, I believe it's just one. Protocol stages power through symbolic language and has always been associated with prestige, status, importance, good taste, common sense, beauty, privileges, and honors, dignifying an event and its participants, elevating them to a level of quality, and that's here that the index can be very important, far from chaos, disorder, ugliness, turmoil, and conflict. At the same time, we live in a society that is moving towards informality, that is bored with rules, that dispenses with anything that might restrict personal freedoms. So, what path then should protocol follow? Protocol must renew itself, adjust, and adapt to 21st century without losing its essence and identity. Institutions and companies invest in marketing, advertising, and social media policies, but sometimes fail to fill their most basic responsibilities as hosts. And I'm talking about enterprises and global companies. For example, I receive everyday invitations poorly written. I see high-ranking officials not received as they should be. Guests at an event arrive and leave without even identifying the face of the person who invited them. Well, they usually just go to appear in photos and to eat. The order of precedences are not observed. The legislation on national symbols, namely the national flags, are not respected, or many other discourtesies I see every day. We sometimes witness a real lack of consideration and politeness, or even some attitudes of arrogance. Let us be clear. Protocol cannot compete with any other communication technique, especially in the private sector. Nowadays, there is no longer time for complex ceremonies. Simplicity, transparency, proximity, authenticity, and speed, especially speed, are the watchwords. Protocol must be renewed at the risk of being swallowed up by the voracity of contemporary society, acting in favor of a public image of respect, organization, efficiency, and proximity. In Portugal, where training is still far from the European paradigm, there is already concern about reformulating and introducing not only global but also specialized protocol studies, particularly at sports, local, academic, and official levels, considering the specificities of each application of protocol. In this context, I would like to highlight the excellent work that Universidade Europeia, where I collaborate also, has been developing in the field of protocol training. Nowadays, is with the 36th edition of postgraduate course in image protocol and events management, currently underway. Companies are also increasingly concerned with the need to obtain specialized knowledge in business protocol, considering the concern with knowing how to coordinate business leaders with central and local government entities as provided for in the state protocol law existing in Portugal. With globalization and intercultural relation, there is an increasing need to train protocol professionals who know how to apply the established rules to various cultures, avoiding incidents due to cultural or traditional or even religious clashes, and, on the other hand, ensuring that all constraints and variables are taken into account in the design of the event, so that there is no need for improvisation, which is not advisable in this activity that we have. But what brings me today is the application of the best protocol practices that we can to local governments and its interaction with global and business institutions, private companies. So, just for example, locally, this is a local event with, for example, the President of the Republic, President of the Parliament, and with the Prime Minister. And we only have here two electeds from from the Mayor of Lisbon, and as you can see, this became a global event. A local event became a global event in the presence of the President of the Republic. So this is a local event, recent event. This is an inauguration of a school, but we all the electeds. Usually, I said that the protocol at local level has less impact than other protocols of a regional or national level. We should define impact. It is true that it may have less media impact than national news, which in the times we live is the measure of everything. And so we would effectively be the younger sibling of official protocol. In my opinion, if we measure this impact in terms of quantity and direct impact on citizens, I believe that we are the closest protocol and therefore just as important at different levels. On the other hand, and considering the existing decentralization from central governments to local governments, the local protocol is becoming increasingly relevant. Just look at what happens when mayors or regional government presidents make statements with enormous media and political repercussions with a global impact. Well, we can remember the latest examples of the impact of statements in Pennsylvania. They were made by state governors and mayors, and the global impact in all the world by them. I should also highlight the importance of companies in local authorities and their economic and political development, which greatly emphasizes the importance that their CEOs or directors have been having precedence in local or even national acts. But let's move on to some examples of local practices which the local protocol, when I wrote Delhi, is not a mini protocol, but rather a local application of local practices. So these are some other local practices of huge local events. As you can see, this is in Lourdes, our mayor. This is the main events that we have in Lourdes. It's holiday in this day, the 26th of July, day of the municipality. Another one, and for example, just to say, we take care of the flags. So as you can see, the flag on the left hand side, the right flag is the flag of the municipality, but for law is not allowed to be the same with national flag. So the left flag is the flag is used for ministers in Portugal. It's a minister flag. So in Lourdes, we respect the law and use the flag, not the national flag, but another flag that represents also with the same meaning. So this is a pure local event. Is, for example, the first stone of a new bridge, and I'm going to pass to, for example, another example of a local event, local, just with the visit of the King of Spain, the King and Queen of Spain, to Lisbon, where I have been working for a long time. As you can see, this is a local event. Doesn't seem, but it is. So, now the companies. Two major global companies, DPD and Lidl, for example, which relocate their distribution centers and warehouses to Lourdes, with Lidl event even moving its national headquarters. Now, the typical local ceremonies for laying the first stone or inaugurating the facilities, which are normally local ceremonies, have become national ceremonies given their global importance for the economy and for the development of both companies and municipalities. Also, so this is Lidl. Also, Axians, part of the Vinci Energy Group, another major company, also built its group headquarters in the city of Lourdes, as well as its International Energy Systems Control Center. Although these three cases are corporate ceremonies with the presence of members of the government, such the Minister of Agriculture or the Minister of Economy, as well as the respective boards of these companies, the municipal protocol was called upon to be involved, which happened right at the beginning of each preparatory meeting. Another example I would like to mention concerns to one of the largest international pharmaceutical companies, named Ovion, is also based in Lourdes, very close to our city center, and as part of the factory's expansion and modernization project, Ovion offered part of its work to the local community of Lourdes, building a green park on the adjacent lands. At the ceremony, the Villax family and the CEO of Ovion handed over the park to the municipality, which undertook to maintain it and make it available to the population. The local protocol is provided in one of the chapters of the state protocol law, which, although somewhat outdated, has been a great help in organizing activities. However, the law as it stands was created to define and organize the official hierarchy between high-level public entities and enact and ceremonies. Nevertheless, ceremonies increasingly involve local elected officials and even more so, private entities that are not covered by this law. Currently, much more attention must be paid to local government in the revision of this law, considering that only the mayors and presidents of parishes are given relevance. The remaining members of local administrations are left far behind. This is because local ceremonies have specific characteristics and actors that no other ceremonies have, not even global ceremonies. In fact, as a great protocol professional, whom I greatly admire, is a Spanish protocol professional, chief of protocol of the Spanish Navy, I can say the name is Juan Luis Sierra Dominguez, wrote, whatever the context, the protocol teams that come together do not just execute. They contribute, respect, and elevate the final results. So this is the importance of the teams, of the protocol teams. This is what we try to do every day. This is the message I try to convey to the new generation of leaders and the new generation of protocol professionals in their role. Before I conclude, allow me to share something that, for me, as a local protocol professional, was the most, this is just a parenthesis, the most unforgettable event I have ever been involved in. In this photo, I had the honor of standing alongside a group of Hiroshima survivors on a visit they made to Lisbon. Working in protocol brings us many ulcers, many gray hairs, many bitter pills to swallow, but it also provides us unforgettable life experiences. Personally, I would do it again, even with the mistakes I made over the last 25 years, which taught me lessons even where there were no books or courses to learn from. I beg you, your apologies all over the world, but I have to thank to my actual team and to my former teams that I know that are existing this presentation. This is my actual team, the team of Lourdes, the team where I belong now, and thank you for your attention, and see you until one day.
Thank you so much for that wonderful and detailed presentation over there. I mean, detailing how we can move from global to local and how we can apply global standards to the local protocol.
Global is a joke. Global is a joke. It's a kind of think globally, hack locally.
Yes, I believe in that. So I wouldn't say it's a joke. I think it's very, very key in our protocol practice, even though we're practicing local, to think global and or to think how we can practice local protocol practice with global mindsets. Yes. I think that is very, very key. I believe, you know, you've said a lot in here, and Patricia says she has a question, so I'd like Patricia to ask her question so I don't keep going. Okay.
All right, Rolando Sanchez, this is really beautiful, I must say. You've done a fantastic job in terms of your presentation, and I find it really interesting. And I hope that, you know, all our colleagues and professionals out there have benefited from it. I must think so, because this is really beautiful. So the question is, in terms of G-local global, like what M was trying to emphasize on, there's just an interest around culture. And I would like to hear your thoughts on how cultural, differences could actually enhance or, build that relationship when it comes to G-local or local protocol, and harmonizing that with all the various aspects of protocol. I just wanted to know your thoughts around cultural influence. Yeah.
Sorry, Patricia, but I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
I couldn't hear your question.
Patricia, he's saying he couldn't actually hear your question very well. So if you can restate it, that would be very good.
Looks like Patricia was disconnected.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Rolando. Basically, Patricia was also echoing the question that I also had in mind. Rarely do we hear talking people about glocal, so it was really refreshing.
Maybe
especially because now. Sorry?
Maybe if Ham heard the question, maybe you can make a bridge.
And would you like to transmit the question itself? Over to you. Would you like to ask Patricia's question?
No, you said you had a similar question, so it would be good. I didn't actually take notes about it. She was asking basically about the importance. In my mind, I was thinking of the importance of having a global protocol mindset where it doesn't matter how we perform locally in the area of protocol. We think with that global mindset and have those global standards when we are performing. So that's what I was thinking of. But if you have a question, that would be good, because everything that he said was so related to the way I think. So
yes.
So Rolando, over to you. Mm-hmm.
Yes, as I said, in local protocol, we have, for example, we have specific issues that only happens locally. For example, with the flags, with the politicals, with the people we invite for example, me and my team, we are arrange a ceremony for Monday with lots of local and national guests. So we have to. Some of them are not. Some of them are in the law, and we can. It's easy to order them, but a lot of them don't have, and we have to arrange not to lose the dignity of the institutions that they belong, the civil institutions, and because in a way I believe that when people ask me if who pays the bill, who pays the bill and the dinner is in charge, in a certain way it can be, but we cannot forget that we work for a public institution, and we cannot forget that we are very close to local civil institutions and companies. And for example, lots of times they asked for our help to their private events, and because they are officials entities, and we have to collaborate directly and very close to them, and this is about reputation, and we have to help them not to lose their reputation, and we have to help the mayor and the others that we're working not to lose their position and their image. So it's the main important. That's the most important in the middle of this, and in the index area it can be, and we are arranging to measure it, and not to, well, we can not being with that sentence. This okay. ran okay. It ran okay, but how okay? What's okay is when protocol we never remember protocol. Is when people don't remember the protocol was there. Well, we know that when something goes wrong, the protocol is the guilty. So we know we can't being we have to measure it. We have to know what is wrong, what can be better done, what can be running well next time, and that's why we are using to meet the coordination meeting and even with forms of quality to the people to give them to give us their feedbacks. Okay.
Okay,
Tisha,
I know
do you want
that.
to ask your question again?
Yeah,
or,
I think I
yeah.
lost him there. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that,
Yeah.
Rolando. First of all, I was saying that thank you. You've done a brilliant job in terms of the presentation. And then the question I was about to ask is about cultural differences. I mean, in the role of protocol and in terms of enhancing a new index error and those points you've given around G-glucose, if I'm correct here. I wanted to know what your thoughts are in terms of the role of cultural differences. What will it play?
Well, the cultural differences are a reality. We have to deal with that. We have, for example, here where I work, I have a big community of lots of cultures, and we have to deal with them. Cultures, religions, and for example, just to have an idea, when there were the world youth with Pope Francis it was here in Portugal. We had a final mass that our mayor invited all the religions represented in Lourdes and in Lisbon, and we had, for example, we had Muslims, we had Jewish, we had we had all the and cultures. We have we have to treat all of them in the same way here, and we privilege that fact here. And I believe that's the way that we have to follow.
Okay.
Okay, that's quite brilliant. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely presentation on, the emerging
the presentation
local.
To Mr. Robert, to Mr. Robert is difficult to speak after him, but because he said everything.
Indeed, and this is a true testimony of how protocol is not a dead science. It's so alive. It's evolving. It's just coming to the forefront every day more and more with the emergence of the importance of trades and blurring the silos between public and private sphere. So thank you so much.
And just one more thing to everybody's watching us. Don't forget the 11th of May, Day of the Protocol, and because protocol matters.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I will continue with the next, presenting the next speaker, who is going to be on a recorded session. And I'm going to read her bio. Ambassador Saroja Sirisena is the former High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to the United Kingdom, the Director at Quest Consulting Strategic Advisory for Business and International Relations. She is an accomplished career diplomat whose 26-year journey is marked by her strategic prowess and leadership in international relations. Her strategic insights were further demonstrated in her role as the Director General for External Relations in the Ministry of Economic Development, where she skillfully managed foreign assistance in the post-conflict reconstruction phase. Her presentation describes negotiation skills in multipolar geopolitics. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ambassador Saroja Sirisena's presentation.
Distinguished panelists and participants, good day. Geopolitics and the art of negotiation in a divided world. We are living in a period of profound geopolitical transformation. Power is shifting, alliances are fluid, and global crises are increasingly interconnected. Decisions made in one region now reverberate across economies, societies, and political systems worldwide. In this environment, confrontation alone cannot deliver stability. At the heart of global governance, crisis management, and policymaking lies one indispensable instrument, which would be negotiation. In today's geopolitical order, which is defined by strategic competition, fragmented multilateralism, regional conflicts, economic uncertainty, and global challenges that transcend borders, such as climate change and technological governance, this is no longer a world of clear binaries. It is a world of overlapping interests, competing narratives, and constant recalibration. Leadership in this context is not measured by rhetoric or force alone, but by the ability to navigate complexity, manage rivalry, and keep dialogue alive under pressure. Let's now look at multipolarity and the changing nature of power. One of the defining features of today's geopolitical environment is the shift towards multipolarity. Power is no longer concentrated in a single actor or alliance. Instead, it is distributed across states, regional blocs, and influential non-state actors. This fundamentally changes negotiation. In a multipolar world, no actor can impose outcomes unilaterally. Coalitions are fluid rather than fixed. Negotiations occur across multiple fora simultaneously. Success now depends less on dominance and more on coordination, credibility, and strategic patience. Negotiators who misread this reality risk escalating tensions or undermining their own influence. Let us now look at negotiation as a core policy tool. Negotiation, perhaps, is often misunderstood as a compromise at any cost. In reality, it is a disciplined process of advancing interests under constraints. In geopolitics, negotiation translates power into outcomes, prevents crises from escalating into conflict, enables cooperation even among strategic competitors. Whether in trade arrangements, security dialogues, or climate frameworks, negotiations determine not only what is agreed, but what is possible. Effective negotiators understand leverage, timing, credibility, and political context. These skills are not instinctive. They are developed through training and experience. Early in my career, I observed at a high-level policy discussion involving stakeholders with very different interests. The atmosphere was tensed, and the positions were firmly drawn. What stood out was not who spoke the longest, but who listened most carefully. One individual asked a clarifying question that reframed the discussion. The tone shifted. What appeared to be a deadlock became a constructive exchange. That moment reinforced a simple truth. Influence in geopolitics does not come only from authority. It often comes from skill, the ability to listen, frame issues clearly, and guide dialogue forward towards common ground. Domestic politics and negotiation constraint. Geopolitics today, negotiations are conducted under intense domestic scrutiny. Leaders negotiate not only with external counterpart, but also with political opposition, media narrative, public opinion, and economic stakeholders. This creates a dual challenge. Agreements must be both geopolitically sound and domestically viable. Effective negotiators know how to frame outcomes for domestic audiences, build legitimacy around compromise, align political substance with political feasibility. Without these skills, even the best designed agreements will fail. Let's now look at negotiations under conditions of mistrust. Mistrust has become a permanent feature in the international system. In such conditions, negotiation is less about immediate trust and more about risk management. Progress is often comes through verification mechanisms, incremental agreements, confidence-building measures. Leaders who understand this keep dialogue alive, even when relationships are strained. Those who do not often abandon negotiation prematurely, allowing disputes to harden into crises. Let's now look at leadership capacity and policy effectiveness. Public policy is shaped through negotiation between states, institutions, sectors, and generations. Yet leadership development frequently emphasizes vision and values while underinvesting in negotiation capability. This creates a critical gap. Strong intentions without influence, policy ambition without implementation, dialogue without results. In today's geopolitical environment, leadership requires not only authority, but competence, the ability to negotiate across different cultures and power structures. Why negotiation and leadership training is a policy imperative. Despite its importance, negotiation training remains underdeveloped in many leadership pathways. This is a policy failure. Negotiation competence affects conflict prevention, economic resilience, policy implementation, and institutional credibility. Training leaders to negotiate effectively is not a soft investment. It is a strategic necessity. Let me conclude with this message. In a divided world, negotiation is not a secondary skill. It is central to leadership. A leadership today is defined not by position alone, but by the ability to shape outcomes under pressure. If we want more stable geopolitics and more effective policies, we must invest deliberately in negotiation and leadership training for current and emerging leaders alike. Those who are prepared to negotiate will define the terms of cooperation, manage conflict, and shape the future of global governance. The next chapter of global stability will not be written by chance. It will be written by those who are prepared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for this great presentation. As she is not present now, I will hand over to you, Anne. Thank you.
But there are a few things she said that I thought were so profound. I mean, her last statement that she said, the next outcome of global stability will not be written by chance, but by those who are prepared. I thought that was so profound. I needed to emphasize that again. I'm going to move on to our next speaker. He will be sharing on the soul of diplomacy soft power 2.0, and the index era. Jean-Pierre Mugenga is a leadership strategist specializing in organizational trust, cultural intelligence, and the human dynamics shaping modern nations. As the founder and director of Culture and Clarity Limited, he advises senior leaders across government, healthcare, technology on building the emotional infrastructure needed to navigate an increasingly complex world. His expertise is in cross-cultural communication and inclusive leadership and informs his contribution to the evolving global protocol frontier, where he highlights cultural intelligence as a strategic asset for strengthening collaboration and bridging diversity gaps. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite upstage Jean-Pierre Mugenga.
Thank you very much, Em. Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. I will just share the slide. I don't know if I can do that quickly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good afternoon or good morning again, depending on where you're joining us from. Excellencies, ambassadors, and fellow architects of the global stage. We often say we live in a connected world. We point to our high-speed internet, our instant translation tools, our 24-hour news cycles. We celebrate the speed, the access, the noise. But let me ask you something, not as diplomats, but as human beings. Are we truly connected? Or are we simply crowded? Because connection is not proximity. Connection is not bandwidth. Connection is not the number of cables under the ocean. Connection is the ability to see another person's dignity without needing to agree with their worldview. Connection is the ability to listen without preparing for your rebuttal. Connection is the courage to say, teach me how to understand you. And in my work with culture and clarity, I have seen how fragile that connection can be. I have seen brilliant policies collapse because of a 5-cent mistake. I have seen billion-dollar trade deals dissolve because someone pressed the wrong person in the wrong seat. I have seen peace talks freeze, not because of ideology, but because one side felt unseen. Diplomacy does not fail because of big things. Diplomacy fails because of small things that were never understood. And that, distinguished colleagues, is why we are here. Today, we launched the Protocol Practice Index, the PPI. On the surface, it looks like data, a dashboard, a measurement tool. But beneath the surface, the PPI is something far more profound. It is the first global heartbeat of a new diplomatic era. We are moving from protocol as ceremony to protocol as strategy. From choreography to intelligence. From symbolism to substance. This is the moment. This is the moment where diplomacy stops being a performance and becomes a practice. Welcome to Soft Power 2.0. Not the power of the loudest voice, but the power of the most attuned spirit. To understand where we're going, we first need to understand where we've been. Soft Power 1.0 was branding. A nation essentially saying, look how great we are. It was a monologue. In that earlier era, soft power behaved like a lighthouse. A nation stood tall, shining its light outward, hoping that others would admire its films, its food, its values. It was a one-way signal. Here we are, come to us. But in the index era, Soft Power 2.0 is no longer a lighthouse. Soft Power 2.0 is a bridge. And a bridge is a very different thing. A bridge requires two sides. A bridge requires engineering. A bridge must account for wind, tide, weight, and weather. That engineering is cultural intelligence. Which brings us to the heart of this evolution. Soft Power 2.0 is building. It is a dialogue. It is the bridge. And here's the thing about bridges. A bridge doesn't care how tall it is. A bridge doesn't care how beautiful it looks in photographs. A bridge only cares about one question. Does it reach the other side? Soft Power 2.0 is not about how brightly you shine. It's about how effectively you connect. And in this index era, your score will no longer be or depend on how well you follow your own rules. It will depend on how well you adapt to the rules of others. This is cultural intelligence in action. Think of cultural intelligence as the common sense of the global citizen. If you visit a friend's home and they remove their shoes, you don't debate the physics of that. You take off your shoes. That is CQ in its simplest form. Now, imagine scaling that instinct, that humility, that adaptability to a summit of 60 nations. That is the frontier we stand on today. And the PPI is the compass that will guide us across it. To drive the index era, we need an engine. I call it the 4 gears of cultural intelligence. And like any engine, if one gear fails, the whole system struggles. Gear number 1, self-awareness. Self-awareness is the mirror we hold to ourselves. It is recognizing that we all see the world through our cultural lenses. And those lenses shape our assumptions, our reactions, and even our definition of respect. Before you can lead others, you must understand your own default settings. Some of us are time-focused. If you're on time, you're already late. Others are people-focused. The meeting starts when the relationship is ready. Some cultures value directness. Others value harmony. Some cultures say what they mean. Others mean what they don't say. The mirror reminds us that our way is simply one way. And that is uncomfortable because the mirror forces us to confront our biases, our habits, our assumptions. But without the mirror, diplomacy becomes projection instead of connection. Gear number 2, knowledge. Knowledge is the map. It is understanding the terrain, norms, values, communication styles, taboos, and expectations. A map doesn't tell you where to go. but it sure prevents you from walking into a swamp you didn't know was there. In diplomacy, the map is understanding high context versus low context cultures. It is knowing that in some cultures, the word no is considered violent act. So people say maybe, or we will try, or that will be difficult. It is knowing that silence can mean respect in one culture and disagreement in another. It is knowing that hierarchy is sacred in some nations and negotiable in others. The map prevents us from getting lost. Gear number 3, strategy. Strategy is the steering wheel. It allows us to adjust in real time, to read the room, shift tone, adapt protocol, and respond with cultural agility. It is the ability to sit in a room, feel the energy shift, and pivot. It is the metacognition of diplomacy. Thinking about interaction while the interaction is happening. It is the ability to say, the room is tense. Let me slow down. Or, they are uncomfortable. Let me soften my tone. Or, this is not the moment for logic. This is the moment for empathy. The steering wheel keeps us from crashing. Action. Gear number 4. In diplomacy and protocol, cultural intelligence is not theoretical. It is the muscle. It is the difference between a ceremony that lands and one that offends, between a negotiation that builds rapport and one that collapses, between a relationship that endures and one that fractures quietly over time. Protocol is the bridge. Cultural intelligence is the reinforcement that keeps it from cracking under pressure. Can you adjust your tone? Can you soften your body language? Can you deliver a difficult message in a way that honors your host culture? The muscle is where diplomacy becomes real. Because diplomacy is not what you know. Diplomacy is what you do with what you know. Let me take you to a moment I call the 14-second miracle. A high-level leader was visiting a nation marked by deep historical trauma. The atmosphere was tense. Protocol demanded a rigid, formal greeting. Instead, this leader spent 3 weeks learning 2 sentences in the local language, a language that almost never echoes in diplomatic halls, but carry the dignity of a nation in every syllable. He stumbled, his accent was imperfect, but for 14 seconds, the room fell silent. Then a minister on the other side slowly rose and nodded. The ice didn't melt, it evaporated. Negotiations expected to last days concluded in hours. He didn't use the rules, he used the heart. Now, contrast that with another delegation, one that gifted a gold-plated clock to a partner in East Asia. In the West, a clock says, our time is precious. In a host culture, giving a clock sounds like attending a funeral. He didn't give a gift. They didn't give a gift. They gave an insult. Months of work gone. This is why the PPI matters. It measures the things that actually move the needle. Respect, awareness, adaptability. Distinguished colleagues, look at your hands. These hands sign treaties. They clap for speeches. They shake the hands of allies and adversaries. But if these hands are not guided by a culturally intelligent heart, they are merely performing a play. The world in 2026 stands at crossroads. We can choose the path of old protocol, wars, rigidity, ceremony without soul, or we can choose the path of the index era, bridges, clarity, and connection. Soft power tool is your superpower. The PPI is your compass, but you are the bridge builders. Do not leave this summit with only a note full of ideas. Leave with a heart full of curiosity. The next time someone frustrates you, don't ask, what is wrong with them? Ask, what is my mirror missing? If we do this, if we commit to this, we will not simply shape policies, we will shape history. We will build a world where protocol is not a set of rules, but a universal language of respect. My name is Jean-Pierre Mugenga. I believe in a world of culture and clarity. And I believe the leaders in this room are the ones who will build it. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What can I say? What can I say? There's so much loaded in your presentation. And the way you bridged it with the protocol practice index. I mean, the few things that stood out to me, and I'll probably, when you compared protocol as the bridge and not the whatever, it's such a, I've written so much, I don't even know what to say, from ceremony to being connected and, allowing ourselves to be the most attuned, spirited person in the room and allowing the bridge to not just be the bridge, but have an engineering wind to it, engineering side to it, and using that as cultural intelligence for what we do. I don't know, it's so loaded. I don't know, self-awareness, the knowledge map, strategy, all those things. And one thing that you said is that cultural intelligence is not what we learn, but it's the ability to build rapport, and it's the protocol.
I can't hear you. I don't know if you're still. I think we lost connection.
Also.
Yes. Okay, she's back.
Must be, looked to adopt whatever we do. Soft power is not superpower, and PPI is our compass. Protocol is a language of respect. A lot of things that you said, that's just mind-blowing, actually. I will need this presentation to go over and over again to build my PPI and cultural intelligence. Honestly, I'd love to have it. So thank you so much for that wonderful presentation there. Agnes, is there anything you want to add?
Well, as you were, talking about it, it sounded even poetic, the way you described how amazing it was. And
yeah,
for sure, all the presentations so far have been amazing. It just reminded me of someone's recommendation about a poetic book by Khalil Gibran, The Prophets. And he stated, from every page I could quote, So this is something that I was reminded by your comments, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you very much, Anne. And I will now proceed with presenting the next speaker.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is going to be Ms. Patience Nganzi, who is a Ugandan diplomat at the African Union in Addis, now serving at the African Space Agency. She is a seasoned professional with extensive experience on both the international and national stages. She is specialized in law, international relations, and with expertise in partnerships and stakeholder engagement, as well as advocacy and visibility. Proficient in various domains, including space policy and Earth observation, conflict resolution and peace building, youth development, gender equality, and women's empowerment. Her presentation is titled From Space to Sustainability: How Digital Protocol, AI, and Data Ethics Will Shape Global Diplomacy in the Indexed Era. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Patience Nganzi.
Sorry, I said it looks like she froze right before she joined. Can you hear us, Patience?
Thank you very much, Ricky, for that update. Indeed, I can see that her image is frozen, so potentially she will be back in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, Patricia or Anne, would you like to comment anything else in the, this wonderful lineup of presenters and all the amazing comments as well in the comment section? So, Patricia, what is your key takeaway so far?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant in terms of the topic for this conference is actually being properly articulated, if I'll use that word, and the discussions have been in line with, all of the new index era. And I'll just, again, use the opportunity to say thanks to Jen. He did a fantastic job in terms of how he has analyzed it. And that brings us to really the applications when it comes to the change. I mean, people should be able to understand where we are going when we say the protocol practice index and the new era, what you should apply, what are the functions of this, how could this be initiated in our practices. It's just so important, and I think it's giving us a different view about how we harness protocol. So from just the ceremonies to actually strategy. I've been a person always promoting strategy as a way of the protocol practices. It's not just the normal ceremonial issues or procedures or practices and things like that, but it's actually bringing us to the fact that there's a strategy when it comes to protocol application. And that's the bottom line of today's discussion. So it's really brilliant. I say thank you again to all the speakers who's really giving us a new dimension. Thank you. Em?
Yes, I'm just, everything that's been discussed here is just emphasizing the essence of having not just the index on its own, but how we can apply it practically. The last speaker actually drew a lot of what I would say, for me, it drew me to a lot of the practical stuff and its application as well, which is brilliant. So I think, it's not just the PPI per se, but also the application of it and how it can make protocol practice better.
Thank you very much.
Agnes,
My final thoughts on this is that this science of protocol and diplomacy, if we can say it this way, is really evolving very fast. So we need to buckle up, and we definitely need to pay attention and collaborate closely with all the professionals. So thank you very much again. And now we have patients ready. So please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start. I think I can be heard. Apologies for this. Distinguished diplomats, protocol leaders, and colleagues from around the world, it's an honor to join you at this pivotal moment as we launch the Protocol Practice Index and step into what is now called the Index Era of Global Diplomacy. Today, I want to take you on a journey, not across borders, but into space, above borders, just to share and show you how what happens in orbit is now quietly reshaping sustainability, diplomacy, and global power. Because it's the 21st century, the most influential diplomatic instruments are no longer only treaties and ceremonies, they are now data, algorithms, satellites, and digital standards. Next slide, please. Yes. Why does space matter? As we all know, space is now geopolitical. It's viewed as a diplomatic domain, and for decades, space was viewed as a scientific or military domain. Today, it has become a diplomatic and sustainability infrastructure. Because in the 21st century, the most influential diplomatic instruments are no longer only treaties and ceremonies, algorithms, satellites, and digital standards. Satellites now track floods in different parts of the world. For example, Mozambique, as we well know in Africa, those have been very rampant. Droughts in the Sahel and forest loss in the Congo Basin. Satellites also monitor climate disasters, food, and water. This data eventually influences aid, climate financing, security, and international negotiations. Next slide, please. So we go down into the depth of this. What is digital protocol? Digital protocol are a set of rules which determine how data and digital systems interact across borders. But here is the quick question. Who controls this data that is collected by satellites? Who sets the rules and who decides how it is used? Digital protocol goes on to answer who gets access to climate data, who controls satellite information, how is AI used in global decision making, who sets the ethical rules. As we've so far seen, that is not a technical issue. It eventually becomes a protocol and governance issue. And that's how digital protocol comes in. Next slide, please. Yes, digital diplomacy. I'll start by first differentiating how traditional diplomacy was or is and what digital diplomacy really is. So in the past, all traditional diplomacy protocol ensured respect, legitimacy, and balance of power. I'll not add on to that because the previous speaker have already said enough concerning that. Currently, as we're in the era of digital diplomacy shows how protocol determines access, trust, and equity. The UN and the African Union now rely on satellite data for disaster response, for example, and climate negotiations. Data, AI, and satellite diplomacy satellites now shape diplomacy. Data ethics is now diplomacy without rules. It's data. It shows how data becomes power, AI becomes bias, and technology creates inequality. Without protocol, data becomes trust. With protocol, data becomes trust, becomes cooperation. Without rules, creates inequality. Sorry about that. When a satellite provides drought data to one country but not another, that creates bias. When AI models predict food shortages, that also creates bias. When climate finance is triggered by only Earth observation metrics, that also creates bias. This is why we need protocol, so that data can influence data, so that it can become trustworthy. AI can become fairness. We're no longer in an era where we're no longer negotiating only through ambassadors. We are now negotiating through data systems. This is how space and satellite systems come into the picture, because this information that's provided by satellites influences decision-making tables. Next slide, please. Why the digital protocol frontier matters. We now need that the different governments and systems need to create data sharing protocols, for example, ethical AI standards, digital sovereignty frameworks, transparent climate data governance, for example. Without these systems, digital tools will only need to as the previous speakers have also enhanced. Next slide, please. The protocol practice index in the digital era. For the first time, we can now, once the protocol practice index era has been launched, for the first time, we can now move protocol from ceremony. As we all know, protocol is now mostly viewed as a ceremonious event, but once the protocol practice index is launched, we can now have move protocol from ceremony to strategy, tradition to measurement, formality to impact. Imagine an index that evaluates how ethically a country shares its climate data or different sources of information, how inclusively it uses satellite information, how transparently it applies AI to policy, how fairly it collaborates across borders. That is what the index era makes possible, or will make possible. Protocol will no longer just be about who sits where. It's about who has access to what. That is why it's important for everybody to have access to all this information. Next slide, please. What's the meaning of the index era? The index era means protocol is now measurable, standards are now global, accountability is now data-driven. The protocol practice index can further measure digital transparency, climate data sharing, ethical governance, and cross-border cooperation. Next slide, please. Sustainability needs digital diplomacy. Sustainability will not be achieved by good intentions alone. It requires verifiable, trusted, and shared data. You cannot protect what you cannot measure. As we all know, if digital diplomacy is out there, but there's no measurement for it, then it will not be able to launch some of these things. This is why the protocol practice index is important, so that sustainability can be measured and can be extended to all areas where it is needed and valued the most. From space, we can now see what is happening, where, and how fast using satellites. Which forests are disappearing? That's one of the things that satellites are able to show us in space. Which coastlines are flooding? Which communities are more at risk in events of floods and different situations? Which coastlines are being being destroyed, and maybe fish cannot be able to thrive there. Satellites are able to show us all this information. That is why ethical digital governance must be embedded into the future of global protocol. This is because protocol ensures this data is shared fairly, used ethically, and trusted globally. But data without diplomacy becomes surveillance. Technology without protocol becomes power imbalance. I'm just trying to show you why we need this protocol practice index, which will eventually lead to sustainability. Next slide, please. Africa's opportunity in the index era. Africa is not too late to this transformation. Africa is strategically positioned, as we all see it on the world map. This is because it has rapidly growing satellite capacity. Different countries are now launching satellites, which was not the case before. Recently, Algeria launched its satellite, which was such a pivotal moment. And this is why the protocol practice index is really important for digital protocol. Expanding digital infrastructure. Africa is also expanding its digital infrastructure at a very fast rate because Africa has a big population. This also contributes to the digital information and infrastructure. The young tech service population, as we all know, Africa has a very high population or a very young population. This contributes highly to technology and digital transformation, and the population is really eager and interested in technology. This also contributes and helps Africa to position it in the index era. The growing space environment, as we all know, different countries are now launching space programs and space agencies and satellites. So this also contributes to the growing space diplomatic influence. Africa is now being welcomed and listened to worldwide on different diplomatic tables. For example, the G20, Africa was well embraced. This contributes also and helps Africa to position itself furthermore in the index era. Africa can help shape the rules of the digital diplomatic system, not just follow them. Due to all these reasons that I've mentioned, it can help, these reasons can help Africa to actually further influence and position itself diplomatically. Next slide, please. The Protocol Practice Index gives African institutions the chance to standardize best practices through setting standards that uplift the continent. So we can use the index era for our own advantage to see how can we actually position Africa and push for a better narrative for Africa on the international scene. Secondly, the Protocol Practice Index gives African institutions the chance to measure digital governance by gaining diplomatic power through data. Because the Digital Protocol Practice Index helps to collect so much data digitally, Africa can use this to measure its digital governance through different platforms and use it to its own advantage. Africa can also strengthen global credibility by shaping global rules. I think we are moving away from the narrative where Africa was known for only bad things, but just to echo it further, Africa can use this Protocol Practice Index to further shape what Africa is known for and to also push for global credibility by shaping global rules. Next slide, please. Yes, in conclusion, the future of diplomacy will not be decided only in conference rooms. As I've mentioned, it will be decided in data centers, satellite networks, AI systems, and global indices. It will be about who controls information and the standards that shape the world. The index era demands that protocol evolves from tradition to intelligence. That means it should move away from the old ceremonious rules of just being in boardrooms and move towards data systems and digital systems, because this is where this is where the world is heading to. So that means from tradition into intelligence, from space to sustainability, from AI to ethics, from data to diplomacy. We are not just measuring the world, we are shaping how it will be governed in the future. Thank you so much. I look forward to any questions that anybody might have. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I think I didn't introduce myself. My name is Patience Sengazi, and I work with the African Space Agency. Thank you. African Union. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, Miss, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So indeed, it was a very insightful presentation. And as you were talking about the opportunity of using digital transformation to increase credibility and opportunities for diplomacy on the world stage, something that came to my mind, and I would like to ask you more clarification about, is, for example, did you think about, open government, whereby citizens have the opportunity to demand data and access to information? How advanced do you think is this stage? Are there disparities between different areas of the African continent? Because you were talking about it as a whole. What are the challenges, or what are the great successes that you could share? I know it's a loaded question, but please try to give us a little bit of information regarding that.
Yes, Agnes, you read my mind. I was laughing because I was thinking, oh, wow, such a wide question. I don't know if I can be heard.
Now it was a little bit just cut, but you may try again. I think the connectivity is not so good.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I was laughing because the question is so loaded, but let me try to break it down. Of course, there are quite a number of challenges, but from the angle of the African Space Agency, what the African Space Agency, under the guidance of the African Union, has tried to do is to launch different space agencies in different countries, different space agencies and different programs. For example, there's a program that is called GMS and Africa, that the African Union was trying to do different space work in different countries. Let me use an example. For example, in East Africa, at the coast in Kenya, to measure the potential fish or good fish that people can consume, or how much fish is being misused or like overfished and replaced. Different so satellites could be able to capture this information. That's one of the things that it was doing. And then satellites could also used to measure through different countries. Like I've said, Algeria has just launched its satellites. Different countries have satellites, really. Uganda has, Egypt has, South Africa has, Nigeria has. Not all countries have. This is something that the African Union is pushing for. But these satellites, like I've mentioned, are used to measure different things, like which countries are being affected by floods, which countries are facing challenges with deforestation and are not planting trees to replace or recalculate this problem. So that's some of the things that satellites are doing in Africa. And when all these this information is gathered, and it is this digital era is important because this data is collected, is given to member states and to use it to decide and make different decisions. This is why at the end of the day, whoever has the data will control the scene, because if one country has a satellite, for example, and they're able to capture certain information and then another country doesn't have, yet this satellite can also capture information in their country, then this causes a problem. This is why it becomes a governance issue, because information has to be shared across borders. It's not just about who has the power, who has influence over this information. It has to be shared, and that's how protocol comes into the picture to calm down the situation and be able to set rules and ways through which this information can be shared and can influence different partners at different levels, which at the end of the day trickles down to grassroots levels, because once decisions are made at the top, then it will influence how a person maybe down in a rural area will be affected by how the government is deciding. And also, of course, the climate issue affects everybody everywhere. It doesn't matter classes or whatever. So that's why this information is important, because it affects everybody at the end of the day, and it influences different decision-making bodies. I hope I was able to answer your question, Agnes.
Yes, thank you very much. Digital protocol is something that we do not know much about, but I think we will more and more frequently, we will hear more and more things about it, because definitely this is the direction in which we are going to. Digitization, digital transformation,
Yes,
and I look forward to learning more from you in the future.
Yes. Yes, just to even add on to something small, as we know, in the past, diplomacy was mostly practiced under through diplomats having to meet in person and interacting on a personal basis. But in the digital era, there's emails being exchanged. We see different heads of state. For example, Donald Trump, he loves to use Twitter, and this is such a huge platform that people actually listen to and follow just to hear what he's saying. So definitely digital protocol, digital diplomacy is becoming a big part of the world. And I think the whole world needs to really embrace it, because this is where we're headed to. And definitely the protocol practice index will come in very handy. And I'm happy to share whenever insights are needed concerning digital diplomacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well. And through the example that you just mentioned, we can say filtered or unfiltered digital information can be both a blessing and, a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
So this is why this topic is so, incredibly interesting and exciting. So thank you very much again. And I would like to now hand over the stage to M, who is going to present our next speaker.
Yes, another exciting one there. Our next speaker is Ambassador Benayoga Okoyen. He's going to be talking to us about protocol as a policy tool from ceremony to strategy. Ambassador Okoyen is a distinguished career diplomat, protocol strategist, and an international relations expert over 3 decades of impactful public service, an Oxford University-trained diplomat, and a certified corporate etiquette and international protocol specialist of the Protocol School of Washington. He is widely respected for his depth of experience in diplomacy, governance, and high-level state protocol management. His career spans service across all 3 tiers of government, demonstrating exceptional expertise in diplomatic representation, international negotiations, intergovernmental coordination, and executive protocol administration. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ambassador Okoyen discussing protocol as a policy tool from ceremony to strategy. The stage is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, my dear colleagues, esteemed diplomats, protocol professionals, participants, and ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to address this important summit at this very frontier of our profession. Let me thank the organizers for the invitation. The theme of the summit is a call to unite leaders, shape policies, and launch a new era. This is not a future aspiration, it is the current mandate for the modern protocol officer. It is important to note that in the past, protocol has been synonymous with the rigid etiquette, sitting plans, flag position, and the meticulous ceremonial compliances in the managing events. It is important for us to also know that this theme today was very apt, and I intend to bring more understanding of the protocol profession by moving it from the peripheral of the ceremony to very out of strategy. While the indispensable ceremonial compliances was a very basis of our work in the foundation, they are not our literature itself. Indeed, the literature of our modern protocol is policy. A protocol is now at the frontier of governance and of diplomacy and of international influence. In fact, I was very blessed by most of our speakers dwelling on the same topic and in different aspects of it. It is a deliberate instrument of statecraft and policy implementation. Protocol is a strategic narrative written through every meeting agenda, every gesture, every cultural nuance acknowledged, and every symbolic act staged. Protocol becomes a policy tool when used intentionally to influence and manage relationships, perceptions, and outcomes without formal legislation or public declaration. In this presentation, I would like to look at why this topic is important. We'll look at the traditional understanding of protocol, the strategic shift of protocol from the ceremony to strategy, protocol as a silent diplomacy, protocol also as a tool for foreign policy and crisis management, national branding, multilateral diplomacy, global protocol frontier, and the launching of the new era and the future of our protocol profession. Why it matters. Protocol is no longer ceremonial, though is the basic and the foundation of our profession. It's not trivial, but the optics now influence policy outcomes. Symbolism shapes legitimacy. The processes of ceremony and all that now communicates power. And diplomacy itself is increasingly becoming public. The important note here is protocol has become a strategic governance instrument, which is very important in the profession, and we must be aware of this shift. Protocol is often misunderstood as a mere ceremony, but In reality, it is a strategic instrument of statecraft. When used deliberately, it shapes perception, signal priorities, manage relationships, and advance national interests, which is exactly what policy aims to do. It is important, like we have mentioned, to know that the tradition and the foundation is not completely thrown out, but it is important for us to know the shifts. At the stage where we are is a stage we need to recognize and make visible to the practitioners of this profession. How has this shifted from the traditional, which was a focus on doing things? The process is the goal. The characteristics of the foundation itself was checklist compliances, ritualistic behavior, status quo preservation, maintaining orders of precedence, flag items, and seating arrangements. But the limitation here has been mastering the ceremonial foundation is necessary as a baseline of our credibility, but not sufficient because protocol is seen as a supportive service, not policy asset at this stage. This strategic shift from ceremony to strategy. Protocol become a strategic policy tool, like I said earlier, when it is used not just to transmit information, but to structure the environment, define the rules of engagement, and create dependency. It is the ultimate form of soft power, like other speakers have said, in the digital world, where the ability to set the standard is often more powerful than the ability to build bigger products. This move from ceremony to strategy happens when leadership recognizes that the protocol is a source of structural power. Protocol become a source of power. How can protocol become a policy tool? Protocol become a policy tool in different ways. One of the ways is by signaling political priorities through symbolism. When we decide who is to be invited, who sit where, who speak first, what symbols are displayed all send policy signals. To shape the policy impact of this is that this is shaping international perception without issuing a formal statement. A good example is when a summit arrangements at various organizations are concentrated on achieving a particular objective. In advancing diplomatic negotiation through structural engagement, protocol determines the environment in which negotiations occur. Atmosphere influences the outcome. How it works in practical terms. A carefully designed state visit creates trust before negotiations begins. Informal side meetings arranged through protocol channels resolve deadlocks. Hosting, order, and hospitality build goodwills. How does this have impact on policy? It creates psychological and relational conditions necessary for agreements to be reached. Good example could be a high-level diplomatic engagement coordinated within the United Nations rely heavily on protocol to facilitate negotiation spaces. In managing recognition and legitimacy, one other way protocol can become policy tool is to manage recognition and legitimacy. Protocol determines who is officially received, recognized, or ignored. This is a powerful policy tool. How does this work in practice? Granting or denying state visit status or accreditation of ambassadors, diplomatic ranks, and honors. The impact on policy is conferring legitimacy or signal disapproval without formal sanctions. Example could be recognition procedures handled by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, reflected in Nigeria's official foreign policy stand towards governments and political actors. The other point is software projection and national branding. Protocols showcase national identity, values, and competencies. In practice, cultural performances during visits is a visible tool for this change. Precisions of ceremonial organizations, presentations of national achievements. What these have on policy impact is it enhances influence, attractiveness, and credibility globally. A good example is Global Summit hosted by World Economic Forum use protocol staging to position countries as economic leaders or innovators. Next is crisis management and de-escalation. Protocol provides structured communication channels during tension. In practice, emergency diplomatic settings could be explored to achieve all this. Special envoys received with specific honors and carefully worded ceremonial gestures to calm tensions. The policy impact of these could prevent escalation while maintaining dignity and dialogue. Next is institutional hierarchy and governance discipline. Protocol ensure order inside government system, which is essential for policy execution. It is a chain of command in official events, authority recognition in decision forums, and procedural discipline in international gathering. The policy impact of institutional hierarchy and governance discipline is structured decision-making process within the European Union depend heavily, as an example, on protocol hierarchy. The next is economic and strategic messaging. Protocol arrangements communicate economic policy direction. These, in turn, allow business leaders to be included in state visits, investment forum attaches to diplomatic ceremonies, other or bilateral meetings reflected in trade priority meetings. The policy impact of this is the signal of markets where partnership and investments are encouraged. Conflicts resolution and peace building, domestic political messaging, strategic assets are other aspects of the shift from this profession to strategy and policy as a policy tool. Carefully balanced representation, and finally, The shift from the ceremonial compliances to strategic to protocol is now translates policy into visible actions, manages perceptions and legitimacy, prevents diplomatic incidents, and enforces national branding. Establishing hierarchy and respect, and finally building trust. Protocol is now a silent diplomacy. It speaks when words are avoided, signal intents without statements, preserve dignity during tensions, open doors when negotiations are stale. It is important to note that well-executed protocol often succeeds where formal diplomacy hesitates. Protocol as a foreign policy tool. Protocol determines the recognition, like we mentioned earlier, access, status, and equality or hierarchy. Protocol in the multilateral setting, a lot of lessons could be drawn from United Nations and multilateral summits and international organizations. Equality of states, neutrality and order, or predictability. In the global frontier, uniting leaders and shaping policies, protocol is the ultimate integrator. We are the subtle engineers of the human connection upon which political agreements are built. In shaping policies, we must be at the planning table from inception. The protocol officer must ask, what is the policy goal of this visit? Is it to ensure a trade deal, garner support on a security issue, or repair a strained relations? Once defined, every protocol decision, from the composition of the delegation to the final toast, must be aligned to serve that goal. It is important for us to also look at the index error, why we measure protocol. Protocol effectiveness should be measured, should be documented, like other speakers have said, and standardized. A possible indices are protocol preparedness index, the diplomatic reception efficiency, and the crisis response protocol rating, the cultural sensitivity score, and among others. What is not measured is often undervalued. We must champion the development of a new metrics that moves beyond counting events to measuring the outcome. Global frontier is no longer at the stage of red carpets. Protocol strategies is now in the situation room, trade negotiation chambers, and the digital summit platforms. Our tools are no longer just invitations and flags. They are strategic access, cultural insights, symbolic narration, and crisis management. It is important for us to also know that the future of protocol professionals is moving from event managers to policy advisors to strategic thinkers to cultural negotiators and risk managers. Protocol officers must sit at the policy table. In conclusion, it is important for us to know that protocol is no longer how we welcome guests. It is how we project power, preserve dignity, manage differences, and advance national interests. In modern governance, policy is not only what governments say, it is also what they stage. This is where protocol is important and who they honor and how they engage. As we stage this global protocol frontier, let us unite leaders through informal protocol, shape policies through strategic symbolism, and launch an index era that recognizes protocol as a core governance function. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that insightful representation, PowerPoint presentation over there. And, you know, it's been insightful and very, very knowledgeable. Thank you so much for that. I'll just move on to the next speaker. Agnes, help me introduce that, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Anne, and thank you very much, Ambassador Ben, for the excellent presentation. So, we are talking about a visionary concept in the next presentation. I am very happy to introduce to you Patrick Chen, engineer entrepreneur, who sold his first company to a multinational company in the mid-2000s. In 2011, Patrick co-founded the non-profit IITTI World Civility Index to establish a standard similar to ISO and tests like GMAT. It is now used in 19 countries by hundreds of thousands and became an official partner of the UN Sustainable Development in 2019. In 2023, they joined the MIT Presencing Institute as a partner and contributed a chapter on the World Civility Index to a book by the Inner Development Goals, or IDGs for short. Founded by Harvard, Lund, Stockholm Universities, and World Business Council for Sustainable Development, this spans over 500 hubs in 80+ countries. His presentation is on future-proofing the profession, training the next generation of index leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Patrick Chen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Agnes. I hope everybody can hear me well.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm here in Vancouver, Canada, so I'll say good morning. And I know some of you are somewhere else, so good afternoon, good evening. I'll be talking about the future-proofing your profession. So how do you keep your job in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And there's one thing that is shifting very quickly. For young people, we work with a lot of universities and university students. One thing they tell us, and that is, Patrick, you know, we really like to listen and learn more from a lot of experts and so on, but professors, you know, in classroom and so on, we really want it to be digital. So young people, Gen Z and so on, like my daughters, they are glued to their cell phone. If you can see my cell phone here, and they would do anything just to keep their cell phone. So I think the main thing to future-proof your profession is to understand that your work is most likely needing to be online. And if you're not comfortable speaking to a camera and so on, learn how to be comfortable, like me speaking to you right now. And so the first thing we know in my first slide here is you need to be having a dual mode. You need to be able to do both. You need to be able to speak in front of an audience physically in a hotel, ballroom, or classroom, and so on. And you also need to learn about all the tools like Zoom and other platforms, Microsoft Meet, and so on, so that you can be comfortable online. So most students are digital first, as in my slide here. So, but you need to make sure your presence online is as much effective as your personal physical classroom experiences. So that's point number one. A hybrid model, online and face-to-face. We'll go into a little bit as to how do you tie the two together? How do you use both mode effectively? So that would be the case. So on the left side here, you can see that you can have not only presenting like right now, like a live streaming of you speaking to an audience, but think about content creation. So your content, your brand needs to be in front of your audience pretty much on a daily basis, if possible. Because if you speak to your audience in a classroom and so on, maybe you get retained and hired once every month or every few weeks and so on, you need to have a better way of reaching out to your audience so that they would say, oh yes, I remember that protocol expert. And so if you can give them a little bit of wisdom, a nugget, what we call micro lessons that you can give them. So you may probably have to partner with people who can do digital content, creating some kind of article, some kind of short videos that would having you giving some kind of nuggets of information. That is the way how you can build a culture with an organization, company, and so on. So all the rank and file, not just the few people, but everybody would have to have this kind of protocol training. The reason why is it's not just the CEOs and the C-suite who go out and meet people who would build a brand for the organization. Is all the rank and file, the engineers, the marketing people, the finance people, and so on. If they go out and make a fool of themselves, it doesn't really matter if the CEOs do all the right thing in terms of protocol. So you really need to have all the people there. Right now, in the era of digital media and so on, every employee, every members of an organization is an ambassador, is somebody who needs that protocol training. So you actually have a wider audience. It's not just the few who are doing the photo ops and the handshake and so on, but everybody, because everybody probably have some kind of social media they go on. And when they go on social media, they represent the brand, they represent the organization. So that is why some kind of digital content from you with your brand, it's very, very helpful in that regard. And so if you can have you can tie in the online and face-to-face and give them some kind of credential. It's almost like the protocol practice index. You need to have some kind of measurement so that your audience, your customers can be loyal to you. So you need to be able to think like your customers. You need to think user-centric. So what do I mean by that? What do your students get at the end of the day? Now, if you give protocol lessons and lectures and so on, fine. But do you give your own certificate to your students? I know that many give a certificate of participation. So what do you think the users will do? Can they use that to find another job? Can they use that to impress their boss right now so they can get promotions and get get a raise, so on and so forth? How can they use your lessons, your wisdom to further their career goals? So that is user-centric. Is what did they get from you at the end of the day, beyond the wisdom, the information? How do they show something like this? That's the main thing. How do they show something like this? So the issue is, if they try to look for a job, how would the HR understand that they have the empathy, they have the soft skills, for example? Would the degree show something like this? No. Would their diplomas show something like this? No. But you, in future-proofing your position, your career, you can have the opportunity to show something like this that is beyond their formal training in schools. The soft power, the soft skills, the protocols, for example. So that's the $1 million question. So I introduced to you the World Civility Index. That's what my group has been doing for the last 15 years or so. And you show a record of inner development lessons, a record of protocol lessons that they can have under the belt, showing right there, the World Civility Index. They can show it right there to their HR manager, to schools and other people to get hired, to get admission into schools and raises and so on. So you need to have those kind of numbers that you can use. The World Civility Index is user-centric. They are something that you can give out to your students en masse. So if you have 100 students going through your program, even if it is only a 3-minute program online, they can all earn 1 point, for example. And that would be a point that they can accumulate over time, and they can show those numbers to whoever they need to show to. So the World Civility Index is supposed to make things sticky. You want your audience to be sticky, they to be loyal to you, so they don't go away. How do you tie it in from one session of training to another for the same organization, for example? So a universal standard measurement allows you to tie in your client's current achievement. So if you give them a lesson and they earn 1 or 2 points, they want to come back to you because you have this World Civility Index measurement or whatever other credential measurement you use that are universal. If you can find a better credential program, use it. But for our clients, they use the World Civility Index because it is something that is transferable. So in the future, they can think, oh, I've already earned 5 points of World Civility Index. Maybe I should go back to you and get some more training other than somebody else in that regard. So they can come back year after year because they want to continue with that World Civility Index. So it's almost like a loyalty program. That's how you air miles and all the other grocery stores, coupons and so on. Those are all loyalty programs. They base on certain standard, and they can have the loyalty of people coming back to them time in, time out. So by having this kind of index, just like the protocol practice index, it makes the invisible visible. What is so abstract? The problem with our profession is that protocol is a very abstract thing. You can't really touch it. It's not like building a car. You can touch it like Tesla or something. So you need to make it visible. And having the index, both the protocol practice index and this world civility index, well, they measure different things. They make the invisible visible. So, for example, our customers, our students can have bankers, university students, marketing people, engineers, so on and so forth. They learn about this soft skills. They can learn about protocol, for example. That could be very important. Like I mentioned before, your market can be very big because it's not just the CEOs and so on who go out and shake hands, but really the rank and files. They are all ambassadors to their own organization, the brand ambassadors there. So I think that is the most important thing that you can do for your profession. And this is my presentation. And if you need to talk to me, I have my email here, and you can reach me, and perhaps we can meet again. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for this amazing contribution. As you said, you are making the invisible visible, and you are making the unmeasurable measurable. So it's quite an achievement by itself. Could you share just a nugget, as you say, or a bite-sized piece of achievement or impact that you are most proud of?
The bite size is important. Along the digital first that young people prefer, they much more prefer to meet you online than in person, because well, young people nowadays they're very busy. Say, for example, university students, they go to classes, they have jobs to pay for the tuition and so on. So they much rather prefer to meet you digital first. And with digital first, as a protocol professional, you actually have a bigger market. You got to think about the volume, not just the few CEOs. You need to think about the volumes, the hundreds of thousands of people around the world, even university students. You, as a protocol professional, you can go to university and say, why don't I give you a micro credential program, a small package right now? Oh, by the way, micro-credentialing is the trend of the future, because universities, they already have their frames of curriculum, courses and so on, but they really want to have an extension of programs. Something like the protocol would be very, very suitable, because they have nothing like that. When I was in engineering, I got 0 courses on protocol. And as you grow as an engineer, you need to have that kind of protocol, so that in situations that is above and beyond just sitting in your own laboratory, when you need to talk to other people to make policy and so on, those are skills that I didn't have. Those are the main things. So your market, in terms of future proofing, you need to look beyond just the current market, but future market. But digital is one thing. And the other thing is to have a micro credentialing program, a university extension program that you can sell to organizations like universities and companies. Companies, you can also provide micro credentialing program, so that all the rank and file, you go to IKEA, they have 300,000 students, employees. Why can't they have this protocol in selling in their stores, for example? So those are all opportunities that I see.
Yes, indeed. And these are revolutionary ideas And when I introduced you by saying that it's a visionary concept, I think I just did a lot of truth to that. So thank you very much again, Patrick. I encourage everyone to reach out to Patrick on LinkedIn, visit the website. So there is a lot of wisdom and a lot of practical tools to use. Thank you.
Patricia will be saying a few words.
Okay, let me take the stage then.
Yes.
Wow, it's been a really long day,
Long day.
and I wouldn't want to repeat all the topics and areas we've learned. But first of all, it's so important for us to say thank you to all our moderators. They've done fantastic job, Agnes and M. Thank you for the time and all the coordinating of the sessions. Is very important that we say that. And I also want to say thank you to all the speakers. It's been excellent. From one to the other, you learn, and I wouldn't want to go into all the briefing. We're going to do a report which we're going to communicate to you, so I wouldn't go through all of this again. But the most important thing is that protocol is measurable, protocol is practical, and protocol is consistent, is measurable, and is a must that we continue to have the call out in terms of call to action for us to start thinking about, not really thinking, taking action to know that we are in a new era, and you must be part of that era in terms of how we've harnessed. And I just want to say thank you to our keynote speaker, even if he's not here. Apologies again, he says, and all our participants. Oh my God, you have been so excellent. Your patience, your commitment, your dedication is brilliantly and really appreciated. We thank you so much for the time. Some great news. We are having our World Protocol Matters Conference coming up in May, which is supposed to be happening in Vienna, Austria, but somehow we moved that event to Budapest. It's going to be happening in Hungary, so information will be sent out to everyone on our network, inviting them for that program. So it's going to be live and not face to face. So we just wanted to mention that is quite important for us to know that we are having that event coming up in May. And then there are other events coming up which we're still going to invite you to. So we really appreciate the International Center for Protocol and Diplomacy and all of its partners are saying thank you for today's program. We will be in touch with you. And at this point, we would like to close the room. I know that we'll spend the whole day. Thank you so much for this excellent time. And we'll see you soon again. Before you know it, we'll be on your doors. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Agnes, and thanks again, M. And of course, we thank our IT support, Ricky, who has done fantastic job all the time. He's been the behind the scene magic. Thank you so much, Ricky, for all the support you've given to us today. Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but we say thank you to everyone. Thank you. So see you again. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for everybody for staying on and being patient with us as well. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.